recording because we're going to get into the juicy now, the juicy business. So I'm just going to let you know a little bit about how this superconscious scaling session is going to work. Now, I always struggle to call my masterclasses anything because it's like we're going to go all the places, and it's going to be a unique creation that comes about with you ladies and the people who have been drawn into this for this very reason. Okay, so we're going to go into different pieces, but the main thing I want you to know is that I'm going to share a little bit about my journey and story and how these three forces that I've come to uncover are the keys to growing abundance and business and scaling where we are now to where we would love to be. So I'm going to share a bit about my story as I share about it, because I think story is a really powerful way to understand the inner workings of these pieces. So I'm going to sort of go along and give you a bit of content through my story as well. And then I'm going to like leave it open to you and open up from Q&A and open up to group coaching and things as well. So we'll have some time for that at the end as well. But what I would love is also, if you can put in the chat, just before we get going, what drew you here? What would you love to get out of this? What would your intention, the end result of this call be? You walk away in an hour, you know, you've received this, you've got this, you've changed this, you've transformed that. What would it be? You know, what did you come here for? What would you love to take away? I'd love to see that in the chat if you could just put that in there as well. And then we will get going. I'm feeling quite hot in my little yellow number, so I'm just going to take my arms out. Alignment. Beautiful. Alignment is a very key process that I'm sure we'll talk about and you'll see. Love to see how to work on... Oh, there's so many chat things, it's all getting lost. Love to see how to work on limited belief in our subconscious level. Awesome, Mita. We will go down that trail for sure. High vibrational energy from the connection. Yes, love it. Well, hopefully, you know, even if you just witness and feel what's present, you'll receive that from this as well. Because yeah, we channel, you know, whatever I've received from my embodiment and my lessons and my mentors and you know, the origins of all the work that I've received, like you're receiving that as well. So really connect in with your body here and be open to what you receive, not just from what I say, but just what you're feeling energetically as well. So yeah, love that. I love your energy. My end result is to understand how I work the work. Awesome. Thanks, Laura. That's great. Always willing to learn and grow, kick to move forward, power, inspiration, beautiful. Addressing the psychological fear that is anchoring in stuckness. Yep, we can talk about that for sure. Inspirations, feel a little stuck in things, moving slowly at the moment. Awesome. Let's talk about momentum then. There seems to be a bit of a theme of that. I'd like to sign a new contract this month and a new income level. Amazing. Let's release some of the abundance codes for you, Dal. Get out of my head, growing from my experience and from others. Awesome. Yes. Always best to learn from others. You know, I had to pay $600,000 in the last 8 years of my own development and my life's journey of like 8 years of psychology and all the coaching work I've done, all the different modalities to share with you what I've got. And it's so much better if you can just sort of take this now and run with it instead of have to go through all of it yourself. You're obviously going to go through your own work, but yeah, always looking to learn from someone's achieved what I'm heading toward. Awesome. Beautiful. All right, ladies, are we ready? Ready to go? Okay. They're all fun. It's beautiful intentions. I'm going to make sure I weave that into what I'm sharing today. But then again, at the end, if you know there's a piece that you're really wanting to know, or like we'll go into that at the end as well. Growth, alignment, scaling, money-wise. Beautiful. All right. So the first thing I want to talk about, I'm going to talk to you about these three forces that I've tapped into and I understand are crucial in the balance of these as well, to create what I've created and to continue to grow and evolve. And I've been in lots of different spaces over the last 8 years of my business, in the coaching space, in business world in general. And I see people growing and succeeding in some areas and not in others based on these three forces. It's very important what I'm going to share with you today. And I want you to look at this lens of my journey, and what I've learned with this is to look at to you and go, which one am I maybe leaning too much on and which one I may be weaker in and need to develop more of. You know, really look at this because it's crucial, and I'm going to share with you how crucial it is. So the first thing I want to talk about is the force of Soma. I call it Soma. It's your body. It's the physical reality of your human form. It's the strategy. It's the action. It's the courage. Like, this is what Soma is to me. Okay. So we're going to talk in the physical human realm, because for me, in my business, that was the first sort of force that I understood and learned how to work with, and it's a very pivotal force that, a lot of people don't know how to work with well. They go either direction with it, and so it's about getting that balance, that middle ground with it. So what I'm going to talk about is my journey with Soma. So when I first started my business, a lot of you may have heard, my story. I'm not going to go into the depth of all of this because a lot of you have heard it, but basically at the beginning of my business, I separated from my husband at 10 years. I was in a 10-year marriage with him, relationship with him, 6 months pregnant. And I had my business on the side. I was head of wellbeing at a school. I had my business on the side. And I was going to launch it while I was on mat leave, thinking that's a great, easy idea to have a baby and start a business. It was a bit crazy with a lot of things I did. But I launched my business, at the back end of a breakup with him. And so really blindsidedly ended the relationship with him. I found out he was having an affair and we couldn't work through it. So I asked him to leave. And for the next few months, I was in a deep depression, really had a lot of pain come up because it was a very sudden thing that happened. I didn't see it coming. And so the first few months of that journey, I just was having to heal, and heal, I mean, just going within and really letting the emotional work surface, and I did a lot of that. Now, I'd studied psychology for 8 years, and I just realized that I hadn't actually been applying and embodying what I knew. There's a level of us being a philosopher and us having knowledge, and there's a level of us embodying it and then having mastery of it. There are 3 levels. And one thing I'll point out right now is that I find a lot of people know a lot of stuff and they think they know it, but they're not doing it and they're not embodying it. And they'll delete all this insight, delete basic principles. They're not actually acting on. So if you're not acting on it, you're not putting it into practice, it's like you don't know it. And actually it's worse. It's better for you to not know it and not do it. It's worse if you know it and you're not doing it. It's telling your subconscious you're very, powerless with this area. So that's why Soma is so important. The body, the physical reality of you putting things into action and practice is vital because of the message that you're sending. So I went on a journey of Soma, of embodiment, of learning how to actually act in alignment with what I knew. So after a few months of this deep dive emotional journey, I started to come out and think, I want to create my business because I've had this vision since I was 16 years old of what I wanted to create. I was turning 30 at this point. It's I'm not letting this problem and all these problems around me break another thing and finish another thing off. So I ended up leaning on creation's power over problem solving because I had a lot of problems at the time. I was a single mom, figuring out how to be a mom for the first time before I was, having had a child. I was figuring out how to do it by myself. I didn't have a relationship that I was in love with and had for 10 years of my life. I was learning how to be single for the first time. Didn't have any money because I was on mat leave. I didn't have a job. I didn't have really a business because I was, very depressed. So I had lots of problems, but I just put my energy into creation. And I'm I want to love my son and create a business. This is what I want to put my energy into. And as soon as I put more of my energy into that and less on the problems, that grew and that evolved and that blossomed and the problems diminished naturally as a result. So what I did in the first 6 months, and this is when I'm having a newborn son, literally, I worked 40, 50 hours a week at the beginning because I had no clue what I was doing, but anytime he napped, I just worked, and I just took bold, massive, courageous action. I didn't have any strategy. I didn't know what the heck I was doing. I didn't know anything about the energy world. I didn't know anything about the things I know now. So all I knew was courage and action, and as a single mom, you got to build some resilience and courage. And so I just went out and I contacted people and I messaged them and I got on calls with them and I invited them to work with me. And I ended up in 6 months making $30,000 as a single mom, having no clue what I was doing, just from courage and action alone. So there's a big piece in just moving, just taking action, and some breakthrough can occur with that. But I will let you know that there's a lot of downfalls to just having this reality of Soma, of the body. And that is that you get exhausted, you get depleted. There's a lot of costs involved in this. I was exhausting myself, I was burning the wick at all ends. I couldn't sustain it. It felt really hard. It felt like I was doing so much effort. I was working 50 hours, but I wasn't getting the end result that I should have been getting for all of that work, And so when we're in this physical world, there's benefits to courage. However, it can be exhausting, depleting, frustrating when you're doing everything you physically can and you don't feel like you're getting anywhere or very far at all. And that's what I was feeling. So I hired these strategy coaches thinking that strategy is the way. Most people think that in business, like you got to learn how to be a business person and, do the strategy thing. But what I found when I went down some of the strategy routes is that I was listening to these coaches, them dictating to me and telling me what to do that was not necessarily in alignment with my intuition and myself and who I was. You see, the first coach I hired, who was a strategy coach, she told me I had no area to coach in other than weight loss and health, because I had nothing else in my results in my life. I didn't have a husband. I didn't have an older child. I couldn't be a parent coach and blah, 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 blah. You didn't have all this stuff just because she wanted to remind me what I didn't have. She wasn't trying to do that, but that's how it felt. But it was like, you can just coach in this. That's all the thing you have. I wanted to coach in self-worth, resilience, all this crazy growth that I'd had in myself in that time. But she said, no one will pay for that. No one will buy that. Just do health. People will pay for that. And she just had learned from her person who told them, this is the way it has to be. So I went along after a few months of pushing and trying to fight her. I ended up going with what she said. However, my business ended up being harder. I ended up earning less, even though I was doing more. And even though I was getting this strategy, I actually ended up earning less from it. Why? Because I wasn't connected to my intuition. My energy was not in alignment with what I was doing. I wasn't passionate about health and weight loss anymore. I cared about that 10 years ago. I just had a massive breakdown in my whole life and I worked through it and I wanted to teach people about that. That's what I was excited about. And I had no energy there, so it wasn't flying. So she taught me some strategy and it helped me to a degree. I understood a little bit more of how to niche and how to have an offer and how to do a product and how to market and how to sell. And however, because my energy wasn't there, it was difficult. So I'm telling you, the Soma space and the physical human world of courage and those bold actions is beneficial. It's powerful. It's important. But without the superconscious, without the energy, without the intuition, without an alignment in the inner world of your life, it's pointless. It's literally like I felt like I was in a hamster wheel and I was just running around, barely getting anywhere. Maybe getting the odd result, but not anything compared to the amount of effort and energy I was expending. And it's just devastating. It's despairing. Like you get really disappointed. Has anyone ever felt that before in this world? Yeah. It could be that you're over relying on the human physical Soma reality. It could be that. Because that's what I was doing in the first 3 years of my business. That was what it was like. And I hired strategy coach after strategy coach after strategy coach, thinking that there's just the wrong strategy coach. It was the wrong strategy. Maybe the next thing would be the magic bullet, And the last strategy coach I hired, I actually ended up doing the worst in my business. I was like 3.5 years into this point. When I worked with them and the things they told me to do, again, was not in alignment with myself. It didn't feel right. It felt sticky, icky. It felt gross what they were getting me to do, like the manipulation I felt and, the ingenuine nature that I felt, the mass stuff I felt. It wasn't in alignment. And so for 4 months, I made $0 doing 20 sales calls every week, getting on sale call, everyone saying no to me because I was taking all this action, but I was not within myself. 1, confident that I was, backing what I was doing. 2, I wasn't actually feeling abundant and I wasn't feeling like I was coming from this place of desperation. So people could sense this. There was all these unconscious messages they're getting, right? Because I didn't know how to deal with my inner world. And so even though I took all this action, there was this invisible world going on that people got these messages from me and it was blocking money and abundance in my business from coming. So there are 2 ways we approach the Soma world, the physical world. For me, in that first few years of my business, I was going gung-ho, all in on it, making that the whole game, 100% of, my work, maybe 80% perhaps, was all on this physical Soma strategy, courage, bold action, stuff. But because it was so heavy in that, it was exhausting me, depleting me, not using a whole invisible world that I had no idea even really was there. And I was blocking myself every step of the way. It was just really hard work, pushing like this big boulder uphill. That's one way that we can go. The other way, though, is that people neglect and deny this place at all. And they're off in the ether, or they're off in, the shadow work, or they're off in all of this emotional world, invisible world, but they're not living in human reality. And they are not looking at, how do I have a business? How do I have an offer? How do I set up some marketing for that? How do I have they don't have any strategy. They don't have any structure, or they don't know how to do that. And so some people deny this exists at all, or they think it's all yuck, so I'm just not going to do any of it, or I don't like money, or I don't like business in that way, so I'm not going to do it. So we can go to two extremes. And I'd love you to check in with yourself right now. Do you feel balanced in this area of the Soma, courage, action piece, or do you feel like you maybe over-rely on it or are underutilizing it? You can put it in the chat if you like, but just tune in for you. This is for your information. Tune into yourself. Even just imagine like, where am I at with this? Because I'm going to tell you one last bit here to this story is that I went off to understand the other two spaces and forces that I'm going to talk to you about, which are more inner world based, feminine energy based. I went off for 2 years after that to fully deep dive into this other world. But in the meantime, I was underusing my Soma again. I underused the strategy. I ended up just saying, well, that coach felt icky for me. That whole world felt yuck. So I'm just going to kill all of that. That doesn't apply to me. It feels yuck to use. So that's bad. And this is good. The masculine, the strategy, the structure, that's bad. Feminine, energy, intuition, that's good. That's what I started to do, which is bullshit. All of us have all energies within us. Alchemy is about the polarity and the integration of the masculine and the feminine. It's about the marriage. It's not that men suck or masculine sucks and female. It's not about that. It's about the marriage of it. So when I dropped that, I was underutilizing a whole area of force. And I actually ended up hiding a bit more in my business. I still was making money and having these big launches, but I wasn't online. I wasn't really doing many lives. I think I had 6 months offline marketing. Like, it wasn't even marketing. I used it as the guise of my intuition led me, but it was just, I was scared. I was afraid. I wasn't ready to step back up in my courage because I had left this part behind. So when I brought this back into my business and I brought these worlds back together, that's where the power is. That's where the bolt is. But this alone is not powerful. Without this, it's not powerful. This combined with the other three, that's where it's like we're doing science here. We're doing alchemy. We're doing all these chemical reactions. That's where the power is. Okay. So I see a bunch of you are saying that you underutilized. Oh, Amita, I just said with the Soma, with the physical, with the courage, with the strategy, with the action, like, are you overutilizing this, over relying on it? Or are you under? Or are you balanced? You might be balanced with it. That's great. So yeah, that's just what I was asking you to reflect. So that's the first area. I'm going to go into the second and the third. And then, as I said, if you've got questions, other things, you can, yeah. But are you guys, is this landing, understanding what I'm saying? Yeah? Cool. Okay. So the second piece that I uncovered after that, the journey I went on to was the superconscious. So we got the Soma, then we got the superconscious. You see, the superconscious is basically our highest self. It's our intuition. It's our genius. It's the part of us that is sitting there often dormant within us that we all have access to. And we've had moments, perhaps some glimmers of tapping into our intuition, our genius. And we've been led. I had moments in my business where I was led to do something, and then I, went to this networking event that I just felt I had to do from my intuition, and bang, I meet someone through someone, and I end up making my whole first year of sales through this person. There were times, but I didn't know how to draw on it on tap, and I didn't know how to use it all the time and how to really access and use it. It was sort of this force that was dormant that I didn't really know how to waken, And the big thing here is that if you don't know how to tap into your superconscious and you don't know how to really utilize this strength, you're actually operating at your unconscious. As a default, your unconscious and all these fears and worries and problems that you grew up having as a couple-of-year-old child, you actually are living your whole life like that now. And pretty much a 4-year-old or a 5-year-old or something is driving the car of your life. Like, I've got a beautiful Range Rover. I would not like my 6-year-old son to get in there and drive. It would be a very scary, messy experience. But that is what we're doing if we don't know how to understand our unconscious and superconscious and this whole realm. You see, even though I did all this strategy, did all this work. There was this undercurrent force that was a default, my unconscious, that was leading my whole life. And it didn't matter what action I was taking and how hard I worked in the physical realm. This whole invisible realm was actually in the full force and power. And I could never run away from it. I could never get away from it. I'll tell you some examples. So when I grew up as a child, my dad lived on a farm when he grew up. And so he had this feast famine experience with business, job, money, food. They had lots and then they had none. And it was just dictated by these outside forces that were outside of his control. So when he grew up, that was his experience. And then when he was an adult, he created experiences from his unconscious to relive that, where he would lose his job in a way that was outside of his control, that the government did and dictated. And for a year, we didn't have much money. He was a pilot, and for a year, he couldn't get another job. And I remember, like, as a child, looking back now after I've done this work, the fear that I felt about money, about jobs and things that were out of our control. We couldn't get, a hold of them, and it could just go in an instant and you couldn't do anything about it, And so that's what I grew up thinking and believing in my unconscious as a child. So what happens when I grow up? I get these jobs where I was a hard worker in HR and all these great jobs, but some random government decision, like I worked for the government, some outside force just stopped the contract. And so I didn't have it anymore. And then I had another job, and then some other thing happened. And again, I didn't have it. And it was all these things that were not to do with me, but there were these outside forces. When I had my business, I would have money and have a couple of clients. Then all of a sudden, bang, nothing again, And I would try really hard doing all that 20 sales and bang, still no money. And so there was this same experience that kept happening, not just in money and business. Like, this was in relationships, my whole ex and everything that happened there. That was just a recreation of my childhood feelings that I had. It was my unconscious was just ruining my life and ruling my life. So what was happening is I was creating my nightmare. I was creating the things I feared the most. I feared being in debt. As a single mom, I had a deep fear of being in debt. That time that I was, not earning money for 4 months, I actually nearly became homeless. And that was the biggest thing that I was afraid about. And I felt so much guilt and shame about putting my son in that position and myself in that position. And I tried so hard to not be in that position, but I kept bringing myself back to it because I didn't know how to work with these forces. And my energy was in my fear. My focus underneath, even though I was sitting there doing all the affirmations and whatever, was in my unconscious. So we either have our focus on our unconscious or our superconscious. Our fears, our worries, our trauma as children, our pain as children, our problems, we either recreate that, or our superconscious just creates what we want and what we desire and what we would love. And so for the 3-4 years of my business, up until I learned about the superconscious, I was trying my ass off to run away from my past, to never create it again. I even chose my ex based on, he won't leave me, he won't divorce me, he won't cheat on me. Like, that's the only thing I liked about him. He seemed like he was committed. What happened? Because my unconscious was making those decisions, and I was actually just recreating my past all over again. And I spent about $200,000 up until this point on modalities, on coaching, on, all of these hard ass work to try and rid myself of this, to try and heal and fix myself, because I thought I was broken. But again, the focus was I was broken. I had to be fixed. And so all it did was just make me more broken and see myself as more not fixed. And like, the problems kept coming, the beliefs kept coming up, the emotions I tried to push away kept coming up. So the very first thing I learned with the superconscious is, number one, we don't try and fix and stop our unconscious. It's not going anywhere. We don't need to uproot it, change it. It's going to be there. It's going to stay. We don't need to fix it, change it, anything. We just need to bring awareness to it and love to it, to be honest. When I'm aware of these patterns, they don't play out because I've got awareness of them. This is one part of the story. I've got another part after. But in the superconscious realm, we just need to bring awareness to it. And then we just need to bring awareness, bring love to the unconscious, the fears, the worries, the doubts. Like, so in that moment when I was in that 4 months and I had zero come in and I was like really facing some very scary things with my life, I just was aware that, okay, this is not where I want to be. My bank account is not where I want it to look like. My reality, if I keep this up, isn't where, and I'd go through all the fears. I'd let it all be. And then I'd really let that run, and I'd go back to, but what do I desire? What do I want? And then I'd get triggered again. I get worried again. I go, okay, go back to my fear. Let my unconscious have a voice, speak about it, back to what I want. What do I love? What would I want? And in that 1 month that I started doing that really powerfully and tuning into abundance, even though my physical reality didn't feel that way, I went from $20,000 debt, 4 months, $0, never really making consistent money in my business. That month, I made a $20,000 month. And then after that, I've never gone back ever again. I've just gone up and up and up from that point on. That was like 4 years ago now. Because I knew how to be aware of my unconscious quite deeply, know where it's playing out, know what it's trying to lead to me, know what it's trying to say to me, be aware of it, bring light to it, bring love to that, and then go back to my superconscious. And what do I want? Where am I heading? What would I really love? Imagining that, seeing that, putting more energy, as Joe Dispenza would say, in my vision of the future, my imagination, and less in the past and the memory of the past. Refocusing my energy. Tony Robbins talks about car driving. And I don't know if you've heard of this story before, but he was like learning how to drive a race car. And they said a really important key, if you're looking like you're about to crash into the wall, is that you need to look at the road and where you want to be, because your body and everything within you will naturally default to want to look at the wall and look at what you're about to hit and be afraid of that. But you need to actually physically move and look at where you're wanting to go, because that will direct you to where you're heading. And so when I learned how to tap into awareness of the pain, the problem, the unconscious, but then going back to what do I desire? What do I want? What would I love? Tapping into my intuition, tapping into my genius, being led by that place. That's when I started to create abundance from alignment and ease. And this is when I was working like 10-hour weeks, and I was making 10, 20, 30K months and beyond, with this powerful work. And I can go deeper into it after. I'm just trying to give you the overview at the moment. So that's the superconscious. And I would love you, again, to tap into yourself, tune into you. Where are you at with the superconscious? Are you underutilizing it, overutilizing it? Now, how do I overutilize the superconscious? This is what I'm going to tell you. The thing I see in this space when I'm in the superconscious realm is that some people meditate and get into their intuition and be in this space so much, but they're sort of in the ether, in the imagination world, in the dreamland, and they're not coming back to reality and actually physically doing anything with it and courageously doing any action with it and actually putting the creation out in the world and moving with it. So they're not using the Soma. Or the next piece I'm going to talk about, which is more emotional based, they're not tapping into deeper emotional levels, because there's a point of there's power in the superconscious and being in the conscious realm and knowing how to be aware and pivot. However, we're not just conscious beings. We don't just have this space here and our crown chakra and our third eye. And we're not just a head, we're not just walking around as a head. We have a whole body. We have cells that hold trauma and pain and emotion, and we need to move all of it. It all has to be in alignment. It can't just be one. So I find when I say overutilize the superconscious, if you're thinking that could be the way, is that maybe you're operating where that's the main place you're operating, which, look, honestly, I wouldn't say a main place. I mainly do operate in this way. However, you're not equally also using Soma and action and courage when you need it and follow through, or you may not actually be utilizing the power of the emotional world, which I'm going to talk to you about. So put it in there for yourself, and you can put it in the chat if you want. Are you underutilizing your intuition, your genius, this space, or are you maybe over-emphasizing it to a degree? So put it in there if you want. Okay, a couple again. It's a bit of a mix, but some of us are under. Okay. Not taking the action. Yes. Yeah, that's a really big key, because we can get all the downloads and intuition can share, and then it starts getting a bit frustrated. It's like, oh, why am I sharing this with you? Because you're not even doing anything with it anyway, so yeah, there's definitely the follow through element for sure is a big piece. Yeah. Awesome. You ready for the last piece, ladies? Ready? So now let's talk about the soul, the last piece of the soul. So we've got the Soma, we've got the Superconscious, and now there's the soul as well that I see slightly different. So at this point in my journey, I was earning 20K months, 30K months. Like I was growing, and it was growing really beautifully. But what happened is I went on this embodiment retreat, and I was starting to learn like deep somatic emotional movement of, releasing emotion, energy, all this sort of deeper work, with breath work and movement and sound and, different healings modalities, or, different places where we're working in the shadow realms and we're working in deeper emotional realms. So I started in doing a lot more of this. And at the end of this week of embodiment retreat, literally all we did was like breath and movement of emotion, and like, these pieces was a predominant amount of it. There was no direction of like, we must earn money with business, or like, there was no agenda or business or money or anything. It was just like deep emotional soul-based work. And at the end of it, I woke up 2 days later with this like deep drop in, super consciously just downloaded this program called Alchemy. And it literally, within me waking up, like within 10 minutes, I just wrote it all out. And it was just like exactly what it was meant to be about, what was meant to be in it, how to market it, when it was going to start, all the things. It was like everything. In 10 minutes, I kid you not, I woke up just knowing all this. It was like God just directly like woke me up and just, And how did that happen? Like one thing I'm going to talk, is that I was deeply tapped into my soul. I was like, my cells were at a cleansed position. Like they were open to be receiving, because I wasn't full of all of this stuff in my body that was clogging up my ability to hear. I was this open channel because of my soul being open and releasing. And so then what happened is I was like, basically, if I called in the women I wanted for this program, like it was an up level, I was going to have an 100K month, and I'd never done that before. I'd had 30K months and stuff, but like to go from that to 100, it's a big jump. And I was like, flipping heck, how am I going to do this? Like, I don't know how to do it. And so basically what happened is I got this direction and this understanding of like, I need to do this deep work in my soul. And I need to know what emotionally, not just super consciously, but emotionally, what do I need to move in my body, in the cells of my being? Because my unconscious isn't just in my conscious mind, it's in my body. It's living there as well, in my emotional body. What do I need to move and process in order to create this from a soul level? And so I was doing the superconscious work. I was doing the strategy Soma work. And then every day, this soul work was probably the more predominant thing that I was doing in this. And the first day I started doing it, I got triggered by this man. Like, I started going on this walk, saw this guy, and I had seen him like 30 times, I kid you not, in like all these different locations. And I was like, oh, maybe he's like the one, like maybe what's the likelihood of you seeing this one guy in 30 different places in these random times in the day? And so I ended up saying to him, like, hey, like I've seen you a lot of times. I'm not stalking you, but like, I've just seen you a lot. So I just started chatting, and, we got it off, we got along. And so we just started going on walks and things. But then as soon as he found out that I had a son, he sort of just disconnected and was like not interested. I could just tell within him he wasn't. Now, he wasn't also everything that I was wanting and desiring. He wasn't super passionate and driven as a man in his work and purpose and all these things. So I got home and I was like, man, I can't even attract. I'm so unworthy. Like I can't even attract this sort of guy, like who's going to like me? Geez, I'm gonna have to go real to the bottom like this. But it was this feeling of like unworthiness was coming up. And what I realized is it wasn't just about these men. It was this business, this launch, 100K, launch. I did not feel worthy of that. And it was like this deep feeling of unworthiness from my childhood that was getting in the way of this launch. So I cried and I let it go, and I did all this movement and releasing and all this work that I do and I teach my clients about. And then the next day I got up and I did the same thing. And I kept that whole month, like that's the process. I would do that, tune back into my superconscious, and then take an action and strategy that was in alignment. And then on that month, I made my first 100K month. The next time I launched Alchemy, first 200K month, like I just increased, doubled it. Your ability of your body and your nervous system to do that growth and to hold that is huge. You need to know how to work on your nervous system. You need to know how you work in your soul, because interestingly, when I had that 100K, probably more the 200K launch, instantly within a day, I just started feeling guilty. I started feeling funny about it. I didn't feel the worth, and I had to know how to move. You'd think you'd just be happy and you'd be excited, right? No, your body feels that's a danger. That's scary. That is so unfamiliar and it's so scary. And like people are going to see you. You're going to maybe be judged. You're blah, 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 whatever happens, you know? And so you need to know how to move it at that soul cellular level to calm your nervous system down. Like I just had a client just have a nearly 100K launch herself as well. I think it was like 80, 90K within a month. And again, like she was so excited and pumped on the day. And then the next day she started having all these stuff come up, and I'm helping her work through, because when we hit upper limits within ourselves that we haven't actually been through before and expand and express before, our body doesn't know how to handle it. It actually feels scared of it. It feels like it's a danger. Anything that is unfamiliar is a danger. So even success and things that are seen beautiful and that you really desire, if you don't know how to hold your emotional body through that, and you don't know how to work at a soul level and a deeper level, you won't manifest it, because your body can't hold it and it doesn't actually want it. You know, you think about fear of success, right? Right now, imagine for yourself, like, why do you, what, now you're in your mind, you might be like, I do want this. What are you talking about, Miranda? Go deeper and say, like, what part, there's a part of you that doesn't want 10K months, 20K months, new clients, whatever you say you want, right? Say whatever you say you want and say, what is it you don't want about that? What are you afraid of? What do you think will happen? I'll give you a minute to just, you can write it in if you want, or it's going to be for yourself. There's a part of you that's afraid of that. Why? What is it? What is afraid? What does it think's going to happen? What is it stopping and blocking you with? I'll give you a minute to reflect on that. There's a part of you that doesn't want to have it, or else you'd have it. There's a part of you that doesn't want to create it, or else you would have it, you'd manifest it. And if you don't know how to move that emotion, that fear, you know, those pieces, that will be the bit that blocks you. You see, there was a part in my business where, I mean, I could tell you lots of stories, but one I have as an example is that, you know, my son has always been the most important thing to me of all things. And there was a part of me that was worried when I asked this question to myself. There's a part of me that was worried that if I grow my business and I succeed, then he'll get hurt. Something will happen to him, because he's the only other thing I care about, and I can't have everything. So if I go well in this thing, that's going to go down, you know? And I had to work through that deeply, because I was sabotaging myself. I was sabotaging my business. You will not grow a business if that's a deep feeling within your body, you know? So I had to work through that. I had to understand how to move that emotionally as well. So if I, you know, when I added in the soul work and I knew how to go deeper into the emotions and move those, then, and I still need to do it. You know, I've launched now alchemy. I'm in the alchemy launch at the moment. It's my 5th launch of it. I still need to do this work. It doesn't ever go away. You'd think, oh, you've done 5 of them, like it would all just happen now. No, there's still stuff that comes up. You know, our body is still afraid of these different things and new different things, or different versions of the same thing. And so when I started to know how to tap into the soul work, it just magnified my superconscious creations, and like it just put me on this other path of journey and growth. However, we can over and underutilize it, like I said before, in all of them. Some people are in the embodiment space and do this deep shadow work, and like, you know, and again, I'm in these different spaces, and they can get so lost in emotion, deep dive, this, move, all, you know, that they don't ever feel like they want to do anything else, you know, and they maybe don't go and take any action, or they don't even tap into their higher self in the superconscious. So they're just swimming around in all of this, and they're not going and moving forward and taking any bold action, you know, because sometimes there's a place to move the emotion, and other times there's also a place to just move in action, and that will move a lot emotionally as well. And you need to know how to, you know, some of them are overutilizing it, going too deep in here, and others are under, and they're not tapping into their emotional body at all, and they're trying to deny and they're trying to pretend it's not there, and they're trying to just be strong and like, let's pretend I'm all smart and abundant, and like, I don't want to go down there because that will make me not manifest, but your unconscious knows this is there, and it's sending out the message to the universe. The universe is getting messages from your unconscious, your superconscious, your consciousness, and from your emotions and the soul work. And if they are not aligning and sending the same message, it's crossfiring, and it's static, and it's not going to work. It's not going to move. So tell me in the chat, are you underutilizing or overutilizing your soul? You feel the power of your soul? Or do you feel balanced? You could be balanced too. And when I look at all this, Soma, superconscious, soul, where do you feel, is the part that you might be leaning too much on, and maybe the part you could grow in? Where's the part that's the weakest link and you might want to develop? And where's the part that you're maybe over relying on? So they're the two pieces. So yeah, put that in the chat. And then now, that's really the key piece that I wanted to share. Like for me, if I was to really narrow my work down into the three areas, it's like for myself and my clients, like I work on the Soma, I work on, the superconscious and the soul. Not in that order. I'd probably say superconscious, soul, Soma, to be honest, because a lot of it is around the inner world, and then those pieces of action and alignment really make a difference. I still work 10, 15-hour weeks, so I don't have to do lots of this work, action, strategy all the time to create what I have, nearly coming into $1 million business, because I can use the superconscious and soul so well, and they're so magnetizing and so powerful in themselves. But it's still important to do that. So that's what I want to share. And I guess for me, what I find is a lot of coaches that I've worked with, like they have power in one or two, but they're not necessarily across all of it. Or clients of mine, people I've seen that they're in often one realm or so, but they're not really integrating them all beautifully. So what I want to do, I'm going to read a couple of these comments that are a bit longer. And then if you have a question, I would love you to put it in the chat, a question. It could be about this, what I've shared, or it could be something else, but I'm just going to give you some Q&A group coaching experience time now. It's also the belief before the proof, even when you're not in alignment, second guessing. Yes, belief before 100%. When I first uncovered Joe Dispenza's work 5 years ago, and I started meditating with his work and created my first 10K month with it, when I had no idea about energy work. Like it was literally like when I was first getting introduced to it, and I did nothing else but that meditations. And I was like, what? I was so shocked because I'd never done it before. I was like, wow, this is so powerful. But I did have to really lean in it and experiment with it and believe in it, to a degree. However, I didn't know how to integrate it fully, because then I didn't keep creating that until I sort of got the three areas aligned later. I think I've been sitting in damsel in distress and waiting to be saved, so not really utilizing the gift of any three. Yeah, wow, Del. And this is a thing, right? Like, I see a lot of women, and I often wonder and ask them, like, their experiences of other coaches and their other things. And, what I am as a coach and what I go to coaches for is not for them to save me. I don't need to be saved. You don't need to be saved. None of us do. We're very powerful, very, very powerful. We just don't know how to tap into that power. But I'm here to amplify. I'm here to guide, and my coaches are also. I'm not going to them to fix it, to make decisions for me. Like I'm powerful. You're powerful. We don't need a coach for that. We just want that extra support, extra guidance, extra amplification. Yeah. So that when we're that damsel in distress stuff, like we're expecting these outside forces to change us, So yeah. I found it's that I'm not fulfilling imagination of my mother and my daughter, how they would want me to live. Yeah, it's huge, Dal. Huge awareness. Because again, ultimately, when that's the case, like we're living a life that we're trying to please all these other people, which we're never going to, because the fear is we're not going to please them. And so that's what we end up creating as well. If we actually end up just actually following our true self, living in alignment with who we really are, and we're honoring and loving of ourselves, like I'd really encourage you to look into your relation to yourself in that way. the more loving I am of myself unconditionally, the more I draw in clients and people and lovers and everything who treat me that way also. If I'm going and looking for all this validation outside, the more lack of significance and invalidation I receive. You know, it is all a mirror of what's going on within us. So ladies, put in some questions. Put in some questions. What are your questions? If you want to unmute, you could do that. If you want to maybe put a hand up, I can have a look through the gallery. Oh, Nita, go for it, Del.
Hi.
Hey.
Yes, darling. I really feel about, what you are saying, that unbroken thing. That's the reason I'm here today. Because I also done a lot of self work in terms of, inner child healing, emotional work, trauma work. But still some part of me, even I have lots of tools, strategy, courses, healing courses. I have spent a lot of money. But some part of me still feel unloved. I really don't know how to do, even though I know how to do self love, but I don't feel that inside. And I have done the coaching, where I can grow the business, but I haven't made any success at all.
Mm,
So instead of improving, it's getting down.
mm,
So 2 years before I left my job, just to be, work on my emotions, work on my frustration, why I feel stuck, I work on that. I done few courses, but still I feel still stuck, and the same.
yeah. Hear you, Dal. I really, really hear you because um, as I said, for the first probably 3-4 years of my business and going into the personal development world and spending so much, as a single mom, I was literally putting every amount I was earning in my business like back into development and coaching and
Yeah,
like my son and I away on a holiday, and I love, I don't know if you ever seen much of me, but I'm traveling a lot. Like I love travel. I grew up traveling. It's a part of my being. And it's like, I didn't do that. I just put it all in there, which I think there's a
yeah,
time for investing, but when it is underpinned and the underlying reason, and which is what was happening with me, is that I'm broken. I need to go get fixed. So I got to go do every modality I physically can. I got to like learn everything to fix myself and figure myself out. And that's at the underlying premise of it all. I just kept creating more brokenness, more problems, more getting myself in a rut, further away from, I remember I did this 12-hour healing journey, like where I was meant to uproot these unconscious beliefs and like uproot these emotions and never have them again. And then, I was all like on top of the world and like, yeah, rah, I did this. And then the next month I got triggered and I went back into it again. And I was like in a deeper depression because I was like, I've done all this and I'm, still here. It's like,
yeah. That's right.
it's not going anywhere, my love. Like
So
I
what is the solution for that? Like, why?
number one is really to look at yourself, witness yourself in love and wholeness, and really deeply see yourself right now in that space, like unconditionally. And this is something I'm having to re-embody again because the world really is run by self-esteem, which is an evaluation of how good you are based on other people, on money or on business or on bodies or on men and relationships and friends or whatever. It's a popularity contest, right? Or, and so really like we
Yes.
base our love ability or worth on how much of this crap we have, which is all bullshit. And so we think we're great or we think we're not based on these things. But at the end of the day, you and all of us are an innate human being, this like innate worth and lovability in and of ourselves. You look at a baby and you line up a bunch of babies, you go, which one's more worthy? You can't say that. Every human being is worthy. It's a miracle of life, right? But when we get older, we forget that. And we start
Yeah,
thinking the more development and the more money and the more, then I'll be worth. It's
yeah.
bullshit. You're never going to have that.
So
It's got to come.
yeah,
Got to come from
when you
that
say
unconditional love.
embodiment, like how you embody, like in terms of, if you want to embody the self love.
If I honest, like one really powerful piece would be to look at yourself in the mirror every day for 5-10 minutes a day and naked look at yourself in the mirror. If you want to really go there, doll, look at yourself and look at what comes up. Look at what fears, look at what frustrations, look at what it could be about your body, it could be about you, like whatever. Just let the voice, let the inner critic, let that all come up. And then send it love. Send yourself love. Share about what you actually love about yourself, what you adore, what you see, what your body's been through, what you have been through, what resilient, and just hear all out the pain, but also just bring love back to it. If you want an embodiment practice, it's like powerful in that way. Like I would say start with that. It's confronting, but it's actually really, really powerful. Like, and what I did as an access point, so I learned about this quite deeply, like when my son was born, because, you know, my life had never been so bad. Like I literally lost everything I used to put my worth on, you know?
Mhm.
And so I had to just start unconditionally loving myself. And I didn't know how to do that. I didn't know how to do that for my inner child because I didn't like myself and I didn't like my inner child, you know? So I loved my son and I had so much compassion for him. And so I just started talking to myself like I was talking to him. And like imagining him as a baby had went through a divorce and was like, I'm ugly and I'm unlovable. That's why this man did this to me and whatever. Like I just imagined him saying that. And I would tell him, like when I saw him say it, I was like, completely no way, you know, and I'd tell him in my mind, like all this stuff, whatever I felt, I just put it on like he was saying it. And I started loving myself through that way because I couldn't access it through myself. And then I started to feel that within me because I was pouring so much love into myself through him, you know? And then I started to bring it into my inner child. Then I started to bring it to my adult self through that portal because you got to meet yourself where you do naturally feel compassion and love. You know, there's someone and something in your life that you naturally really love unconditionally. Meet them there, talk to yourself through that portal. And I can tell you, like, this is a very fundamental practice, and like a lot of people know about it again. But I went so deep within that first 6 months when I had no idea what I was doing. That's all I did literally day in, day out, so thoroughly embodied that practice so deeply. And my whole life, I lost weight, even though I wasn't trying, like really quickly. I like had all these men coming out for me. Like my business started growing, even though I didn't know what I was doing because I just had such a frequency of love. Like I literally didn't know anything else. I didn't do anything else. So this is what I mean by embodiment is so powerful and actioning what we know. Because I had one modality, that's all I knew. And I was doing it deeply and it changed my life. It changed my business, you know. I'm still needing to bring that modality in. I still deeply use it because now I've come to the point where I've got money or my business is here and I've got to just give myself unconditional love that what if it dips or what if it's like, you know, all these other fears come up with you're up here now. There's this fear of success like that can happen and fear of failure.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, you're very right. The why I come into because I was so much angry on my son, and that's what I really need to work on. I always made him the victim of my anger for the frustration. Um,
yeah,
and you're very right. And then I was showing him the self love, and he was like mirroring me like with the whole things. But when it really come to feeling that, even though I'm practicing in the shower, they say like touch your body and feel that, but that feeling doesn't come. I really don't know. I've been practicing for so many long time.
keep connecting it to the people you naturally love. And I would also say, like, something that's really powerful is because there was probably about a year or two where I was deeper in the superconscious work, but I wasn't feeling my connection to my soul as much and my heart. And like before I had that launch, like it was like there was this hardening in my heart and I just couldn't feel that love for myself again, you know, for different reasons I won't go into, but
Yeah.
we can numb our heart sometimes to protect ourselves, right? And so I was trying the stuff that used to work and I was like, why isn't this working? Like, and there was one day I was like, enough's enough. Like, what's happening here? Like, you know, and I set the intention that we're getting to the bottom of this and I'm figuring this out. And I just like spoke to myself, phone off, like time out, you know, set that intention. And yeah, it cracked when you set that intention as well. So set the standard, this thing that you're gonna not, you know, see what is at the block here, and you just go in deep with yourself and be like, this is the time, you know, we're gonna sort this out, you know, and you draw that line. There's been a lot of times I've done that with myself for different things, and when I set that intention and draw that line, like that's when it shifts, you know. So
Thank you.
well, thank you. I'm mindful of time, ladies, and I actually do have a client call to jump out to in a moment. So I just want to share this one piece that I forgot to mention at the beginning. Actually, I normally do, but I really like you love that you've been here. I love the space that we've shared together, and I just want to give you an open invitation, an idea that if you have felt there's any resonance with what I'm sharing, you know, if you felt there's a connection, if you felt like you'd love to know more, love to know how to use this more, embody this more, because I'm giving you as much as I can. However, I've got an hour with you trying to condense 8 years of my business inside and all the work I've done into this space. Like there's obviously a lot more on how and what to do with this and, you know, all the things. So at the moment, as I've mentioned already as well, I have alchemy is my 6-month mastermind. And that's the deepest way that women work with me right now, in embodying this, in going deep in it, in knowing how to access their superconscious and know the intuitive space to work within, you know, and really turn up their business in that way, but also their whole life changes from that. Knowing how to move deeper emotional work and soul work to magnetize and manifest what you want with abundance, with business, with love, with all things as well. And then knowing how to use the Soma, the strategy, the action, the courage piece, and actually be held accountable in that way too, to marry all of these forces together, you know. And it literally is every single piece I've evolved and learned to get to this place. Like that's what I pour into alchemy and my women, and they have a phenomenal, crazy results as a result of that. So if you want to explore alchemy with me now, you can hopefully see I'm a pretty genuine person. Like I don't want to ever have anyone in there that it's not in alignment with. I only ever intuitively explore this with people. So if you'd like to explore it, if you'd like to understand a little more, look at, is this right for us or not? I'd love you to put a yes in the chat and just let me know that you just love to know more. You'd love to explore. You'd love to look at the power of this and whether that's right for us or not. So put a yes in the chat if that seems right or, you know, something for you. And if you're watching this as a replay, then, you know, reach out to me on Messenger probably is ideal. Because then, yeah, I'd love to actually start to look at the potential of whether that's a good fit for us or not. And what I'm going to do, as people are popping yes in there as well, because some of you, like, I'm friends with on Facebook, some of you I'm not, like, you know, everyone's from many different places. I don't even know how you've seen this and found this. So what I would love, my request for you, if you would like info on this or you'd love to explore, is that you send me a message. My absolute love would be that you send me a message on Facebook or Instagram, whichever way, you know, you're connected with me. You find Miranda Marriott and you send me a message. That would be my absolute desire and request if you're wanting to explore, because it makes it super easy for me to find you and figure it out. Some people have like iPhone user in here and stuff like that, and I never know how to find you. So that's one request. If that doesn't work and you don't even know how to find me, I've got a little document there. You can click on that and just answer a couple of questions, and then I will reach out to you with email. It's just super easy if it's yeah, on Messenger, just to begin to send info, get some exploration going on there. So connect with me, click that link. Would love to explore that with you if that feels right. But otherwise, thank you so much for being here, beautiful souls. I would love to connect more with you. So even if, you know, you could message me and share with me what you took away as well, you know, what landed, you know, I always love connecting with women. So yeah, and tell me what happens beyond, you know, how you apply this and what shifts happen after this as well. So thank you for being here, my loves. Great to see some beautiful faces and some familiar people. But yeah, I'm gonna love you. I wish I could stay around and answer more questions, but gotta jump off to a client call now. So lots of love, and speak to you later. Ciao, ciao. Bye-bye.